So our next speaker is Christine Regitz. She's at Global Head of Women in Tech at SAP as well. And Christine, after studying business administration and physics, Christina started her career as a consultant and then joined SAP in 1994, where she held various leadership positions since then. She's an honorary member of the Executive Committee of the German Informatics Society, a member of the High-Level Advisory Committee of the European Center for Women in Technology, and on the advisory board of CyberMentor. So she very well fits here. In addition, she is a member of the industrial board of trustees of the Leibniz Center for Informatics and the German Council for Scientific Information Infrastructures. We're very happy to have you, Christina, and we will make you host now.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm happy to share some thoughts with you today.
Yes, you're now the host, so.
Okay. So, can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So, I think I want to have something a little bit more on a discussion basis with you. I want to also raise your attention to a topic which I think is very important, and I call it digital sovereignty. And why I think it's not just a nice to have, I will explain to you now through my 20-minute talk. And if you see what's happened now in the last weeks and months, especially when it comes to companies, when it comes to universities or to schools, and where digitization came as the major topic over, and how many different questions were raised in this time, and how many, for instance, schools were kind of lost in space at that time. You see, we have to talk about some things here, and especially, and I talk about also Germany. And even now we used Zoom today for this conference, and it was always the big question, is Zoom secure? You had the headlines in the papers, it's not secure. Oh, the ugly US companies, they will, not protect our data and such stuff. So we have a lot of things we need to discuss, and this is why I think we have to start the digital sovereignty for Germany, for Europe, we have to discuss. And what is this, what I think? And there's only a German definition of it on Wikipedia, but if I translate it, it says digital sovereignty generally refers to the ability of an individual, so each of us, or the society, to use digital assets in a sovereign manner. In addition to individual ability, so like literacy, and we have to be educated, it also includes the necessary external conditions, so regulatory things, suitable offers, so the state have to set the structure around to ensure the sovereignty, the sovereign use of the digital assets. So in general, the state and the individual should be able to use digital assets in whatever manner, in a very sovereign way, very independent, a very self-led way. And I think there are a couple of questions around this, and I think the first one, which is pretty obvious, if you look at the big internet companies, they're all located in these days in the US. China is catching up, but it's not, if we talk about the big ones, it is the majority at the moment still in the US. And if you think about these ones, they're normally called GAFA. So it's Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Alphabet. And so this is the four ones which are the main internet giants in these days. And as they are located in the US, they also follow the ethical approach, which is, usual in the Anglo-Saxon world. In the Anglo-Saxon world, it's often the way how they think and act is more like a utilitaristic way. So they follow kind of a guiding question, which is everything that is possible is also worth trying out. So that's their way to do it. And this is also their way of thinking. Whereas we in Europe, coming more from the Kantian way, which says all your behavior should go to or should possibly be a law tomorrow. So that's a little bit of different thinking behind, and this is also why we have a lot of discussions in Germany or in Europe about data privacy, data protection, and in the US, it's just possible what they can do. And don't talk about China, which is not really, that's a kind of a very totalistic state. So don't talk about China in this perspective. So we have to really have our discussion. What do we want as a society, as a state, or as a union, as a European Union? What are the laws and what are the the ethical ways of treating data or treating also companies when it comes to the digital world? And this is especially also the data itself, and this is what you're the experts on that as well. What do we want to do with the data? What do we allow that companies do with individual personal data? Where are they stored? Where it's possible to store them? What do we want? How is the access? How is the regulation to the data? And how much control through the state do we want also to have here? Also in Germany, we have at the moment the discussion about, the Vorratsdatenspeicherung, so the storage of mass data, which is personalized. Also this we have to discuss in the context that we do have the major companies in the US. So it's about personal data. This is your data, this is my data. And I want to have control over the data and the usage of my data, because this is very important. And we have here to talk about who is allowed to do what with my data or with your data, and who can earn money with it. So that's also the big question. Google is not a search engine, but Google is a big marketing company. They want your data because they are paid through, the marketing campaigns based on your data. And also the question is search algorithms. You all know the search algorithms are not bias-free at the moment. They use the data which is available, and we have to make sure that we have explainable results when you enter a search. Why is it that a search brings you a certain result? So we have to have here also the capability to interpret what these algorithms do, especially when it comes to search. Don't talk about ML, but in the ML world, it's even more sophisticated. But every user should really have a good understanding why an algorithm, a search, provides that, what it is, the result. Then we have the big question around assistance systems. So starting from the usual voice recognition tools we have to also think about what is possible with these systems, what do we want them to be able to do, and what are regulatory also boundaries which we want to have for those tools. So that's also a very important question. And this is the easy one, but when it comes to also all our critical systems like the energy system and our and our health system. So what is possible there? If you have an assistance, if you have a digital assistant at home, what is the possibilities? What should be allowed at all? And then we have the operating systems. We have to have a certain regulatory also approach. We have to discuss what is a trustable operating system, so that we don't get sneaked out by the system itself, so that it is not in the operating system as such. And then finally, it's about cybercrime. So we have to also look at cybercrime, because this is also in these days nothing which is unusual, and we need to discuss this as well. And as said, this all is linked to our values, which we have to discuss. So, and this is where the discussion should start. And in order to talk about the values, you need also to have a pretty good understanding about all what I talked about. So you need to have a basic understanding about what you wanna achieve. And if you talk about, first of all, the big topics, what we need to approach in order to have kind of a digital sovereignty as a European Union or as a German society, first of all, it's about the infrastructure itself. It is about, it starts with the telecommunication. You all know the discussion which is currently ongoing with the 5G network, and do we want to have Huawei as a hardware provider or not? So we have to talk about this. So, and we have to have kind of a secure internet, because so many components in these days depend on the internet. And it starts with our energy system, and it's all controlled by digital services. So we have to have here a secure infrastructure. And also we need to have kind of the data centers. This is also something at the moment, I think few people know at all where the data are stored in these days. So in which data center? So cloud computing, it's all about, where's the data stored. So we also have to have kind of investments in data center infrastructure here, which gives us a certain freedom. And then the big topic is about also decision making. As said, search algorithms bring you a certain result. But it's also that we have kind of you empowered as the end user to take a decision as well. So which service in the digital world do I want to use? Which one is trustable? Which one can I really have? So we need also here, we need role models, we need good examples, but we also need kind of a ceiling. So we have to have a certain proof point that you can be sure that the company does not misuse your data. Data is the second thing. We have to make sure, we have to ensure that people understand what happens with data. So people to understand also the terms and conditions of Facebook, knowing that if you post a picture on Facebook, reduces your rights on the photo to a minimum. So this is something which you have to know, but at the same time also how your personal data is used by companies or even by states as well. So this is also something, it's data privacy questions which we have to also have to consider. And in the end, then it's the platforms. At the moment also what COVID shows us that Amazon is the big winner in the game, and that a lot of the stationary retail stores will be the losers. So we have to also make sure which platform do we want to have, what is the power game between them and the society. So this is also something what we need to discuss. And what you need for all that it's literacy. Literacy is such a nice word which only exists in English. You cannot translate it in German, but it's around, it's education. So the people have to understand, everybody has to understand to a certain minimum what is this digital world all about. If we don't have this, we will never have the digital sovereignty at all. So this is something which is very, very important. And if you look at the German school system, and if you look at the even at the European school system, it is not that we have really a strategy here how to digitally educate the people. And this is something where we need also to look really more into also the political situation. And we also have to, as also women, we have to kind of stand up and say, folks, we need to have here more. We have to have the computer science as such from the first school year on, and we have to really bring the fundamental knowledge to the people. At the moment, even in Germany, you don't have, enough teachers who can do it. This already starts. So even if you would implement now a topic in the schools, which is called computer science, you would not have enough teachers to teach that. So this already starts. But if we don't do something in this regard, we cannot make people digital sovereign so that they can really understand what are their rights and what is their right in the digital world. So in this world, we have to really go into literacy, into education. And in this respect, it is not only about, programming or something like that. And it's also not about that you can include bits and pieces in the, in biology lessons or in other lessons. So you have to really establish an own field, because this is the basic knowledge you need for the next decades. We're at the edge of the digital revolution, and if we don't take this now, I think a lot of people will get lost, and there will be in the end, I fear a two-class society, because you have the ones who know and the ones who have no clue, and that would be really a very bad situation, to my opinion. So what I'm talking about is that we need, it's a three-angle what we talk about if you talk about literacy. And first of all, I think it's clear it's about technology. So we need to have the fundamental technology knowledge, so that everybody can ask how a system works, or can judge if a system works or not. There are questions about how to set up technology and how to set up digital systems. It helps also that you learn also a lot of the fundamentals you need, so the background. And here it is important that people understand what is an algorithm. It must not be that everybody does the programming, but what is an algorithm? What is machine learning? And that's the basic stuff to understand what is behind these words. But that's not enough, because this gives you just the capability to understand the basics. What you also need to know is how to use it. So it is how to use the applications, it is how to use the systems, and it's as well effective and efficient use, and and also adapted to the individual use case you're in. So it's also enabling people to understand to use which tool when. So when do I use Zoom and why, or when do I use Jitsi or Teams? To understand and judge the usage and these applications. So that's important to understand this, and also to, in the end, not only decide which one, but also to use it in an informed way, so that everybody can use the tools easily. And then the third and even very important topic is the society. So the aspect of our cultural and societal background. So we need to ask what are the implications of the digital world to the people. And it starts, and you look, everybody's saying a lot of jobs will be gone in a couple of years through the digitalization, and that's true. So we have here major implications of the digital world to the society. And here also we need to think about what do we want as a society, and what do we not want at all, and what is the implication. And this is something where the individual together have to discuss, because this is forming the societal approach towards all that. But I think this is when I talk about bringing that to school, the digital skills. We need to have informed people. We have to have educated people who understand all these three aspects of the digital world. And I think that is also a big effort towards what we are aiming for. Having said that, I'm now done with my speech, and I'm now open for questions, and I hope we can have a discussion around all this, because I think that's the basic discussion we have to do before we start thinking about data and data use. Okay, thanks. And back to Luisa.
Thank you very much, Christine, for this amazing talk. We have had 2 questions in the chat. Thanks for the very animated discussion, girls, or maybe guys as well, we don't know. So there's one question by Naz, who is asking more of a political question maybe. So how are we, isn't Europe too counterproductive with having so many regulations around tech and AI, while actually the US and China are innovating much more and have maybe less regulations?
Yeah, great question. Yes, absolutely. And this is why I think we need to discuss this, because in the end, it's a race, and China and the US are really on the forefront, and we are lagging behind. But I think at the same time, yes, they're collecting data like hell. And in China, it's anyhow different. You know about their system, that you get positive points if you behave well and negative if you don't behave well. I don't think that this is something which we want to have here in Europe. At least this is a a cultural question. And the US is collecting data as well in a real big amount, which is then also the basis for all AI, because AI does just work when you have enough data. But here also we have to find our own, I think, also approach, because I think also, at least in the US, people will have a look at that, you know, data is treated with respect, I would call it, so that not everybody can collect data in order to do something with it. And I think also here we could have a real good position if we really make this statement and say we have a real respectful approach towards data collection and the usage of data. And yes, we should have some regulation around it, and we have to make sure that it's not over-regulated. And I fully agree, at the moment we have some over-regulation which hinders us in innovation. But I think, you know, we have to find the right balance between regulation and also to have enough innovation. And I think we can do it, but we need to discuss. So that's right, we need to discuss. We're just at the beginning.
Thank you, Christine. There's also Liz who asked about what do countries like China, Japan, and South Korea, that are the key giants driving AI and big data, what do they have in common that allows them to be this successful, regardless of their political structures?
Well, I think I would not compare Japan and South Korea with China, because both are democratic societies, whereas China is a pretty non-democratic, I would call it, society. And I think also culturally they are a little bit different. Nevertheless, we always have to understand exactly that, the cultural differences. It's an Asian culture, and in Asian culture, you know, the society is standing much higher in the ranking than the individual. So everything which is done for the society. It's different. We are a very individual society culturally, so that's the difference. And I think in China, it's obvious. So China definitely, I would say, is leading because they have they're scrupulous. They say, okay, you know, all data we need, we take. If you look at COVID right now, it's easy because you're obliged to legally to send all your data to the central server of the government so that they can track you, and they track you. And this is something which we will not have in Germany. And I think also this is nothing which the US or the Americans want to have. But that's the difference. And people are willing to do it. And if you talk to Chinese people, they find it really good. So even that system with the positive and the negative points, they find that good. This is a cultural, it is different. So we have also to consider that they're coming from a different culture. And we have to see that this culture allows them, yes, to move much faster forward than we can do, because we have to find a democratic consensus, and they don't. They're just like, you know, dictated from the top, the government wants, and then it's done. Yes, that's a disadvantage for us, but we have to, you know, tweak it to make it an advantage.
That's true. There was another question by Lisa Reiber, who is asking, what do you think is more important, educating users so that they can make informed decisions, or educating politicians to the end that safe environments are created or set up?
It's a very good question. I think I would say it's both equally important, because once, you know, you have to be able to control also politicians, or to give, you know, ideas to politicians, and at the same time they have to understand a bit more about, you know, the digital world. And I fully agree. So I would, you know, also COVID showed now that we have here a big gap in both worlds. So I think it's, yeah, equally important.
Yeah, so I fear we are at the end of our time. We don't want to elapse too much. So that we can all finish together. Well, thank you very much for your questions, dear participants. And you can always also contact Christine via LinkedIn. And yeah, we're happy to see you back on to this evening's session or tomorrow's session. Simi, did I forget something? You're muted, Simi.
Okay, yeah, so that's basically it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the speakers on LinkedIn. You can also connect with us on our different social media platforms. We're looking forward to having more people join Women in Data. I know for a fact that it was very impressive, the speeches today. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in the evening session. Come with a drink, with a friend. So yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for being so involved and asking questions and yeah, respecting the code of conduct and that everything went smoothly.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, then that'll be all. So goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, and thank you again, Christine.
Christina.
Very welcome.
We will follow up with an email later on.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.
Ciao.